Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Naily by Nature. I'm your host, Naily. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing how I learned to love my brown skin growing up in a very colorist culture. If you're interested, please continue watching, subscribe, comment, like. I would love to hear from you guys. So let's begin. When I was younger, I remember being teased by family members because I was dark skinned. As a child, I didn't really understand the joke behind, what's so funny about being darker complexion. And I know for a lot of people watching who are much darker than I am, they're probably thinking you're not even dark. But in Southeast Asian culture, if you are not white, then you are dark. It doesn't matter if you're tan, it doesn't matter if you're light skin brown, you are dark if you are not white. My journey to loving my skin was very long. I remember family members teasing me, making jokes that, I'm black or African and thinking that it was funny. As a child, I didn't really know how to respond to that. And maybe perhaps they didn't think that they were doing any damage, but it really deeply affected me. And I wasn't deeply affected because they were calling me black or African, but more that I can tell that they were alluding to the fact that I was somehow not beautiful. And when you're a young little girl, that's really hurtful. And I remember I had nieces who were around the same age as me, and they were much, much lighter. And I saw how my cousins or my aunts and uncles definitely treated them different because they were much more prettier to them than I was. In my immediate family, amongst my cousins and aunts and uncles, my family was obviously a lot darker than everyone else. And so I saw my aunts and uncles treat us a lot different. And when you're younger, you don't really understand why. And as you get older, when you acknowledge that, it becomes a very cringy feeling. And it feels actually really heavy for me to even think about it now. It's something that I kind of just blocked out of my mind because I just don't want to even think about it. It just makes me feel really uncomfortable, especially now that I am a lot more educated and I know so much more about racism and colorism and how colorism even began. I just feel kind of sorry for those people, and I learned to put distance between some of those family members who still think in that way. Growing up in a Southeast Asian culture, we're often pushed this false narrative that white is beautiful and superior, and Bollywood really supports this false narrative. Most Bollywood stars and actresses are so white. They have green eyes, white features. You will rarely see a brown skin actress. And if you see a dark brown skin Bollywood actor or actress, they are often the villain. It is deplorable. Really interesting is that in 2020, when the US had these huge Black Lives Matter protests, these Bollywood actresses and actors had the audacity to support Black Lives Matter, and then so many people called them out and were like, don't you promote skin lightening creams? It was such a lack of awareness. It's you're promoting skin lightening creams. You're telling people who are dark skinned to lighten their skin and be beautiful like you, and then you're telling people in the US that you support Black Lives Matter. That's a mental illness. What was even more funnier was that black people in America were just telling Bollywood stars listen, we don't need you to help us in our cause. Why don't you take care of your country first? Fortunately enough, I've never used skin lightening creams. I don't feel like my insecurities ever got that bad, but I know that for a lot of people in the Southeast Asian community, they do use skin lightening creams. And I know that skin lightening creams is used heavily in Latin America and Africa, even in places in the Middle East and Asia. Skin lightening creams is heavily used by people all around the world. The way I was treated by some of my family members really affected my self-esteem, and it's only something that I've been able to reflect on now because for so long I just kind of blocked it out of my mind, and I wanted to see my family members in the best light. But now that I'm much older, I can see them for who they are. Some of my family members, progressed with times, and some of them stayed ignorant. When I was younger, I didn't really understand the issue of complexion. To me, beauty was beauty. However, when people start to treat you differently because of the color of your skin, you begin to develop these ideas that brown skin and black skin is not beautiful. And then it was even worse because when I would look to movies, even Hollywood movies, the standard beauty was white again. It was the standard white woman with blue eyes, blonde hair, and we're constantly being pushed this narrative that white is beautiful, whether it's in Bollywood or Hollywood or in your own family. Even in school, even in my community, I went to a very urban school in the South Bronx. I remember there was this dark-skinned black kid who would often be called African booty scratcher by our fellow Black classmates. The experience that I was developing from my home life, from school, from watching Bollywood films, Hollywood films, was that there was something deeply wrong with being brown or dark skinned. And it was this narrative that kept pushing onto me. And at some point, you start to believe it. I remember in the 6th grade, my best friend, she was this beautiful light-skinned Dominican girl. She was the most popular girl in the school. And I remember she straight up told me that my skin complexion was dirty. And I remember just looking at her and just bawling, and she felt no remorse. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, the most popular and most beautiful girl just told me that my skin complexion is ugly. I must be ugly. 2 years later, I also have this memory. In the 8th grade, this dark-skinned Black girl who I was friends with said to me, "You would be so much prettier if you were lighter skin, like Puerto Rican light skin." And I was just like, so, you know, the experiences that I was having everywhere was just telling me that I was not beautiful. My outside experiences was really affecting how I was feeling inside. Over the years, you know, especially when I got into high school, I became so self-conscious. I just wanted to do anything and everything to make myself pretty. So, and it didn't help that, like, my family wasn't very wealthy. So the first thing I did, like, my freshman year of high school was get my working papers. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy my way into being pretty. So I wanted to have nice clothes. I wanted to make my outside self be as pretty so that I can feel pretty in the inside. I was trying to cover up my insecurities with clothing, and for a little while it helped, but it never actually cures how you feel in the inside. It wasn't until I got to college that I began to start appreciating my brown skin. So I mentioned that I went to school mostly in the South Bronx, including high school. But when I got to college, I went to a predominantly white college. It was a white Catholic college, and most of the students were Italian and Irish. And what was so funny was because at this time, Jersey Shore was really big, and the students would spray tan themselves or be under UV tanning lights to be as dark as me. So I would be sitting in class, and like students would walk in and they were my complexion, but they were white. And so I would sit there and I'd be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, all my life I'm being treated like I am not pretty because I'm not white, and now I am surrounded by nothing but white people who are trying to be as dark as me. Now what the difference is, when white people tan themselves, they're not necessarily trying to look like a whole different race. They're trying to look healthy, they're trying to look glowy, they're trying to look exotic, but still white. When people of color use skin lightening creams to lighten themselves, they're trying to be a whole different race. They are trying to mask their self-hate. They are dealing with a subconscious self-hate that has been taught to them generation after generation. Towards the end of my college years, I started reading books by Malcolm X, Maya Angelou, my favorite author, Chimamanda Adichie, who is this Nigerian author, and I started to learn more about Black history. I took more of an interest in learning, and it's funny because I didn't learn in depth a lot about Black history when I was growing up in the Bronx. A lot of what I was learning was new to me, and I started to understand and learn like how much self-hate was being taught to people of color, not just Black people, but it caused me to think outward. I started to learn about how Europeans went into countries in Africa and created divisions among people. They would divide people based on their complexions, their hair, like they would put like a pencil through your hair, and if the pencil stuck, you were too Black. They would make divisions among people based on the features, the width of their nose. And because they were dividing people like that, even after they left the people who looked more like Europeans in charge. That created civil war in countries like Rwanda, for example, where Europeans divided the country into two groups, Hutus and Tutsis, and that created one of the most horrific genocides in the 90s. When you learn in depth how Europeans created divisions and how they push this narrative that they are superior onto people of color, it's actually really sad and disgusting. There was a time where the British Empire ruled the entire world except for a few countries. That's why I can never understand why so many people hype up the British monarchy when that family was so brutal to people. They taught Indian people to have hate for themselves. The British Empire used to call Indian people darkies. They psychologically abused our people into believing that they were superior. And here we are in 2020 still being a slave to our master. When you start to learn in depth about history, especially British colonization in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh was never supposed to be like separated. India was made up of kingdoms, and we were all just about to get along, and then here comes the British Empire, and they like created so many divisions, and now today there's so much hate and chaos among these different religions in India. Anyways, after I graduated college, I started working, and I met one of my good friends, Ashley, who is this beautiful Nigerian woman. She actually has her own show called The Grapevine. You should check it out. But we used to have lots of conversations about racism and colorism, and she taught me so much that I did not know of. And she also shared her experience of being a Black woman in America and what her struggles were like. And that kind of opened my eyes up to how America has treated Black people, how America is also part of this false narrative that like white is superior, that this is just psychological warfare, where people of color throughout generations are continuously taught that white is superior, and how we as people of color have to unlearn this. Even though some countries in Asia were not colonized by Europeans like China, they still do have this false belief that white is also superior. I have a Chinese friend who is not even like dark or tan, and she told me about this experience where she went to Shanghai, and she said as she would be walking down the street every day, women would come up to her and be like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And that they would offer her skin lightening creams and tell her like, you know, she should go to this store and buy this product and this product. Like, they weren't even selling the products. They were just concerned for her. She was like, I realized like being white was such a big deal. Even in Korea, people get extensive surgeries to have more white-like features. Colorism and the obsession to look white is a disease of the mind that we need to cure as a group of people. I was able to begin to love my brown skin the more I started to educate myself on history, and in that way I was able to be enlightened and to move forward and to really love my skin and to understand that my brown skin is history. This is my ancestors. This is the color of my people, and I have a deep love for that. I think for social issues like colorism and racism to end, we have to have open conversations, especially among people of color. And I know a lot of us have parents or grandparents who come from other countries and they bring these ideas and beliefs with them. We have to be the ones to like bridge that gap. We have to be the ones to have those conversations. And it's not something to like beat your parents up because they just fallen victim to what they've been taught to. If you have a parent who believes that lighter skin or white skin is more beautiful than brown skin or black skin or dark skin or whatever, you need to gently interrogate your parents with questions. Ask them why they believe that. Educate them on history. Do they want to continue being a slave to their master? Because that is literally the dynamic that has been created, master and slave. Even years after Europeans have gone and left our countries, that idea has still lived within us. And we have to go deep to unlearn those things, to free ourselves. One group of people abuses another group of people and teaches them that they are superior. It is a vicious cycle that really needs to end. Today, the issue of colorism makes me so cringy, especially when I see people who actually have these beliefs. I know brown women who wear foundation colors that is so not their complexion. I know brown women who use products like Fair and Lovely because they hate their skin, and it deeply saddens me because our skin is beautiful, because you are beautiful, and you don't have to fall victim to what someone else is teaching you. Your outside world is telling you you're not beautiful. You need to work really hard to find that beauty within you, and once you find that beauty in you, once you unpack all of that, you will attract a better external reality. It makes me really sad that even in 2021 we still have Bollywood that still promotes white skin, despite the fact that India is full of so many dark-skinned people. There are far more brown-skinned Indian people than there are white-skinned, but their movies are filled with white-skinned actresses. I think for us to cure colorism, we have to start having better conversations with our parents. I know a lot of our parents are immigrants from different countries, and they carry, you know, these limited beliefs, and we have to be the ones to teach them, to educate them about history that they'd never learned. Most immigrants don't have knowledge about other countries or other cultures, and If we have the privilege of being born here and we have the privilege of educating ourselves, we have a duty, a sense of duty to also pass that knowledge down to our parents. It doesn't matter if they're too old. You still have to have that conversation with them. Don't stop yourself because you're just like, they're never gonna change. No, these are your parents. This is your family. They can change. It might be a little bit more difficult to have those conversations with extended family, but when it's your family, when it's your home, it's easier to have those open conversations. They're living in a very slave-like mentality, and you have to be the one to help them recognize that. It is my hope that one day we get to a point where the lead of any movie, Bollywood or Hollywood, is a dark-skinned, beautiful woman, and that the standard beauty changes. The way we all see beauty changes too. The only way to change social issues is to educate as many people as we can and teach them about our history, teach them about other people's history, teach them about the struggles of other communities, other cultures, and find ways that we are similar, and find ways to recognize that all people from all backgrounds and all walks of life are beautiful. Colorism and racism are both so intertwined, and we need to find solutions for them. And I truly think that education and speaking openly about these issues is probably step one in moving the world forward. I would love to hear from you guys, hear your suggestions, your thoughts, your opinions. Please comment below. This is a very touchy conversation. It's very sensitive. This is the first time I actually ever spoke out about this, and I'm really happy to do so because I know there's a large community of people who go through these issues, and I really want to be part of the community that finds solutions for these issues. If you enjoyed this video, please thumbs up, please comment, subscribe. It would mean so much to me. Have a wonderful day.